Hey everybody, as promised, I'm going to make a quick video about how to make that spreadsheet from class. And I'm going to move pretty quickly. You can always skip ahead, pause, rewind, whatever you need to keep up, but I don't want to make this video too long, so I'm just going to run through it pretty quickly. So the first thing you're going to want to do is make a new Google Sheets document. I'm in my Drive. I go to new new, and I pick Google Sheets, and that's going to open up a brand new slideshow for me. I find that a lot of times something that kids forget to do in my classes is title their documents, and you'll end up with 1,000 files called untitled document and untitled spreadsheet. So the very first thing you want to do is title this. I'm going to call this Physics Lab 1. And then I'm going to go through the instructions as they're written. And the first thing it says to do is to create this document and get familiar with the terminology. So here, each one of these boxes is called a cell. And you can see that when I click on them, they highlight a letter and a number. Every single cell is designated a letter and a number. So this is A1 or A2 or D3 or whatever. If you click and drag from the middle of a box, you can highlight many cells at once. You can use this for changing fonts or adding borders, things like that. And there's a little box right here. When you scroll over the box in the bottom right-hand corner of a cell, it changes your cursor to this little cross. There's a very specific purpose to this kind of use of Excel. And what it will do is if you put a word in here and you hit that button, it'll duplicate it. So it says that in every box. You might accidentally do it. Now, we're going to use that function later because it's way more than just writing the same word over and over and over again in a box. You can use it to do things like continue a chain of numbers. If I was to highlight both of these and then use that, it would keep counting down. And I can do it for things like the days of the week. Excel is pretty smart, and it will fill in for me week by week. So, and you can use it to replicate math problems and all kinds of stuff. But a couple people today ran into trouble with that because they accidentally copied one box into a whole bunch. So the first thing it says to do is select cells A1 and A2, and I'm going to merge them. That's this button right here. It says merge cells, and that's going to make the two of them one cell. And then I'm going to type distance up ramp, and I'm going to put my units in parentheses, so I put centimeters in there. Now, I can't read the whole thing because it's overlapping into the column B, so I'm going to click on this button here. This is my text wrapping button, and if you, it has three options in here. I want the middle one because I want it to wrap around. I also have these two buttons here. This one will do the horizontal or left to right. I'd like to center it. And then this one will go up and down. I want to center it in there too. So it's sitting nice in the middle. Okay, it's just a cosmetic thing. It makes it look nice. And then we are going to combine cells B1, C1, and D1. So I just click and drag through them. Again, I'm not grabbing this little button down here. I'm grabbing from the middle and highlighting. And I'm going to merge those. And we're going to write in there distance penny was thrown, also in centimeters. And then I'm going to center that again. I don't have to center up and down because it's only one row, so I'm not really concerned with that. I'm going to come over here and highlight those two cells now, E1 and E2, and I'm going to merge them. And I'm going to write average distance. And again, I'm going to put my units. It's very important that you put your units in there. And I need to wrap the text again. And I want to center it vertically and horizontally. Now, these three boxes right here, I combined this one at the top because I have three categories here. And I'm going to call them Trial 1, Trial 2, and Trial 3. And those are all going to be the three trials that I run in my experiment. The distance up the ramp, we dropped the car from four heights, 10 centimeters, 20 centimeters, 30 centimeters, and 40 centimeters. And then I'm going to do predictions for 55 centimeters. So I want to add that to the list too. And then I need to, let's see, here I want to put distance predicted. And over here I want to put actual distance. And so I notice that predicted does run over into the next box. Rather than wrap the text, because I don't want to make this too tall, I can grab from here. My cursor, you notice in between them, changes to 2 arrows. That'll let me resize this cell so that it fits the words inside of it. So that will do that. And then I want to select all the cells A1 through E7. That's written as A1 colon, or 2 little dots, one above each other, the eyes from a smiley face, and then E7. So it gets all the things between those 2 cells, A1 and E7. That's what the colon is for. And I'm going to select my border tool. Here is my borders. I click that button and I can choose just the bottom border, and it will just put a border on the bottom. I can select them all and do any of these borders, maybe just the outside ones, or just the vertical ones, or just the inside ones. I want to do all the borders in here and keep it simple. Sometimes I might find that I want to put a double border down somewhere, or I want to put like a thick border, but for now this is enough. And now I need to input the data from our lab. So I'm going to open up my lab on a separate screen where you can't see it. And I'm going to put that data in. And I probably should have had this ready before I started filming. Lessons for screencasting. This is my first video, so we'll see here. You'll find the data table at the bottom of the post-lab questions. These are the little questions you answer after you've seen the lab done. And if you scroll down to the bottom of the page, it looks like this. So here I have my post-lab questions, Hot Wheels Lab Part 1. I scroll down to the bottom and I have this table. These numbers here in blue are the numbers we want to put into our spreadsheet. Let me see if this will work. Not quite. So we'll just put the values in. We'll just do it like this. 7, 8, and 6, and 22, 22, and 22. And let's see, 28, 41, 35. Notice that I'm not putting any units in these boxes. I'm going to have the spreadsheet do math with these later. So if I write 50 cm, the spreadsheet won't acknowledge that that is a number. It will think it's a word, and that's very important. That is why it's so important that I put my units up top in these boxes, because I know that I'm not going to put any units in my actual table. And now I want to find the average distance. Now, we all know that if you do something once, it doesn't mean you can do it a second time. I'm sure we've all made an incredible shot at one point, or done something just out of the realm of possible, and then you try to do it a second time and you fail over and over and over again. So because of that variability in nature, we want to rerun our lab over and over again. So I ran the car down the ramp and the penny shot off, and I did it 3 times. I could have done it more, but this is enough for our purposes. But sometimes there was a little variability, like 7, 8, and 6. Sometimes it was the same every single time. Sometimes there was a lot of variability, 35, 28, and 41. That's a little more flexibility in there. But I want to know the average so I can compare numbers. So whenever you want Excel to do math, you hit the equals sign before you type anything in. And that's a signal to the program that it's going to do some math. And you'll notice that as soon as I do it, it goes, did you want an average of A3 through D3? Because it's like maybe they wanted the average of 10, 7, 8, and 6. They're smart, but they're not all the way smart. Because if I just click this button, it's going to give me the average of my 3 trials and the average of the height of the car up the ramp. That's not what I want. So we need to be careful that we don't just assume that Excel knows what I'm talking about, or that Google Sheets knows what I'm talking about. I do want to find the average, so I type in the word average. And then I'm going to tell it what to find the average of with those parentheses. So I want the average of B3 through D3. And now in the instructions, it says to just type B3 colon D3. But you could also just highlight the cells you want it to count. And then I'm going to close my parentheses and hit enter. And now it displays a number. 7 is the average of 6, 7, and 8. Now I can write it again down here, and I can say equals average of, and now look, it got smarter. We see that? It says, did you mean B4, not A4? Yeah, I did mean B4 to D4 because it's smart enough because it knows the cell above it was asking for those 3. But there's an even faster shortcut. I showed you this little box way back in the beginning. If I click and drag and bring that down, it'll automatically fill in these 2 boxes with the appropriate formula. Here you'll see that it actually says equals average B4 D4 in this cell. When I go down here, it already thought, did you mean B5 D5? And of course, yes, I did mean that, right? So it's a lot easier, especially if I have to put a lot of formulas into this. It's a lot easier to make the one formula and then keep dragging down to find to fill in those boxes rather than typing average over and over and over again. The other thing you'll notice, I have a ton of decimal points in here. That's too many decimal points. This button right here is decrease decimal places. If I press that a couple of times, it'll cut those decimals down to 1 or 2 digits where they're a little more comfortable to look at and a little easier to use. So there is my data table. It's all set up, and I think I also asked you to highlight these and make them a different color. It's a little easier to read, and it's also helpful to just kind of break it up a little bit and to learn how to do it. So I come over here to my text colors, and I just pick a color that's nothing too offensive. If you make this super bright yellow or something, I won't be able to read it. If you make it something really vibrant, it kind of stands out on the page too much. You can usually do like a red or even a blue is a little cooler. And so that's a little more helpful. Some of the neon colors mess with your eyes. It makes the screen look like it's moving sometimes. So you want to be careful with the colors you use. But in any case, I finished this now. All right. I know each trial, how much I use, and I've put a formula in here to prove what the averages are. So that takes me through the first set of instructions all the way up to inserting a graph. So at this point now, I'm going to insert my graph, and that's easier to do than you think. I'm going to click on Insert, Chart, and it's going to insert a blank chart into my page. You can see it says no data because it's not referencing anything yet. I have to give it all this information. Move my face out of the way here so you can see the chart editor. This chart editor has all of the tools to change this chart. There's setup, which deals with all the numbers, and there's customize, which lets me change the things like titles and stuff about the chart. Right now I can't customize it because there's no data yet. So I'm going to change this to a scatter plot because I want to plot 2 numbers versus each other. And I need to give it a data range. And so I'm going to go with A3 colon A7. And that will highlight these here, the distance to my ramps, A3 through A7. That'll show me the distance up my ramp that I dropped the car from. And I want to compare that to another set of numbers, the average distance that it fell. So I can even just highlight these boxes. Oh, I take that back. Hey, get back here. Set up A3 through A7, and I'll do comma, and I will do E3 colon E6. So now the colon says I want all the data in between these 2 cells. The comma separates those 2 feeds. So I'm skipping over trial 1, 2, and 3. I don't want to graph those. It's going to be too much data, and I don't need them. I just need the averages. So I'm going to take all that A3 to A7 and E3 to E6. And when I hit enter, what are you doing to me? Okay, and it's going to prove me wrong. So sometimes it's easiest to just delete the chart and start over. Insert chart. I want a scatter plot, and I want my data range to be A3 through A7, and I want E3 through E6. I have to add my series here of E3 through E6. So the x-axis, I actually want it to take that A3 through A7 and put it on the x-axis, because along the bottom here, it's going to say how far up the ramp my car was. Down here, I want the series, or the data that I'm graphing, to be the average distances. So at 10 centimeters up the ramp, I went an average of 7 centimeters. And from 20 centimeters up the ramp, I went an average of like 22 centimeters, and so on. So your graph should look like this by now, and all of these boxes in here should look just like this. You should have the x-axis should say A3 to A7, and the series should be E3 to E6. And like I said, sometimes it takes a little bit of poking. Sometimes you have to restart it. So the next thing I want us to do is add some labels to this, because right now there are no labels. So I click on customize, and over here I have chart and axes titles. I can click on that, and I have a chart title first. So I'm going to write my chart title on here, and I want it to say effect of ramp length on distance penny thrown. Hit enter, and there you go. You can see it on there already. You open these options. You can change the font, bold, italicize, all that. I'm going to do the horizontal axis next. That's across the bottom. So I'm going to say distance up ramp. Do not forget to put your units in. And then I change this to vertical axes, and I put in my vertical axis, the distance the penny was thrown in centimeters. Again, with the units, make sure you put units on there. Now I've got a chart, and this is a nice chart. Now I have a title. I have my axes are labeled. This title should actually be capitalized. So I can come over here and ramp and length and distance penny and thrown. So I've got my chart now, and that ends the second part of my graph. The third thing I need to do is find a way to use this to predict how far will the penny go if I drop the card from 55 centimeters. That's what we're aiming for here. Is I want to make some predictable I'm going to make some good predictions about the movement of this penny when I drop the card on the ramp. So I need to put a trend line in, and a trend line is going to put the best line that'll fit all four of these points to put one straight line through here, and then I can use that to make guesses about the rest of the data that I haven't necessarily experimented or plotted. So the first thing I do is double click on this, and that'll open up my chart editor again. And I want to come down here to the series tab. And if I scroll down to the bottom, there's trend line, and that'll open up some more options. And you see it throws a blue line up on my graph. I'm going to scroll down to the label, and I want to change the label to use equation. And so here it adds the label for the blue line. Now you'll notice that the blue line doesn't go through all 4 dots. It actually doesn't go through any of them. But it picks the best line that'll fit directly in the middle of all my data points. Sometimes you have a lot of data scattered around and there's a lot more variability. This will find the best line to fit all that data. And so it gives me this formula, 1.26 times x plus negative 4.33. Now, I know that in algebra, you guys are just around the corner from looking at slope-intercept form, or y equals mx plus b. And that's exactly what this is. If I want to find the value of the distance the penny was thrown, that's going to equal 1.26, the slope of this line, times x, or the distance up the ramp that the penny started, plus the place where it crosses the y-axis, which means negative 4.33. So this is just a math formula that I'm going to input into a box to try to figure out how far the penny's going to go. And I'm going to do that like this. I come over here to the distance predicted box. Okay, right next to distance predicted, I'm going to put my formula in here. And I'm going to hit the equal sign because I'm going to do some math. And I want to do this math right here. 1.26 times, and so I'm going to use shifted 8 to put an asterisk in. And I'm not going to write the variable x. That variable x is how far up the ramp my car came from. That's actually right here, 55. So I'm going to click on that 55 box and notice that it writes A7 in here. So it's 1.26 times A7. Then I'm going to finish this formula plus a negative 4.83. Oh, I'm sorry, 33. 4.33. And I hit enter. Now, that means that from 55 centimeters, I would expect the penny to go 64.97 centimeters from the accident. The cool thing about this is that I can take this value here, and since I've set it up to record the value from A7 instead of writing in 55, now I can come over here to A7 and I can change this to whatever I want. So that way, if I wanted to drop from 70 centimeters, it would shoot 83.87 centimeters. That'd be my prediction. In essence, I've built a calculator. I can put in any value I want in this, and it will tell me how far the penny should go. It doesn't mean it's always going to be accurate. There's a lot of forces in play, especially from a long distance. But it's a workable tool that I can use. So I'm going to put this back to 55, and that's going to give me my predicted distance of just about 65 centimeters. And that wraps up this entire operation. Finish this lab. I have no idea how long this video is. I hope it's not too much. But if the Word doc I made isn't helping, feel free to bust through this video and use it as needed, all right? Have a good weekend. I'll see you all on Tuesday.